All right, there seem to be two different camps when it comes to the idea of whether or not a partner's past actually matters. One side of the spectrum would say, nah, the past is the past, people change, that doesn't matter anymore, I don't need to know about that. I'm looking forward to what we have and what we have moving forward. The other side of the spectrum would say, absolutely everything about a person's past does matter, we need to know about and talk about all of it. So I'm gonna let you know where I sit in the discussion in this video, and I'm gonna give you 5 areas that I think if you wanna talk about the past, you absolutely must discuss. That's today on Relationshots. Hey, welcome to Relationshots. My name's Eric Wooten. If this is your first time hanging out with us, welcome to the place to get practical relationship advice that actually works in your relationship. If you've not already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss upcoming videos. If you want a free guide to intimacy, you'll see a link in the description area below. If we can help you in any area of your relationship, check out the resources in the description area below. If you're a married couple looking for a community, we've got an awesome marriage membership that's got access to all kinds of videos, resources, worksheets, as well as a community platform where you can interact with other couples, wives with wives, husbands with husbands, and grow together in this community. You could check that out below. That's the Altered Marriage Membership. All right, let's talk about your past. How about that? Does that make you nervous when somebody says that? Is there something you want to tell me or maybe like not tell me? Oh man, our past. Just relax. Listen, I'm not digging into your internet browsing history today, although that's probably another video we need to talk about. But let's talk about this idea of, the question comes up a lot when I'm talking with couples of, how much of their partner's past should they know about and actually talk about? And as I mentioned before, there's a couple different camps. One camp says, you know what, we don't need to talk about that. The past, people change. It is what it is. Usually the people who subscribe to that are the people who don't want you digging in their past, which may be an indicator, right? And then there's the other camp that says we need to talk about everything. I need to know childhood. I need to go past relationships. I need to know all the people in the past you slept with. And sometimes the problem with this one is the people can't handle all the information you give them, and so they end up using what you've shared with them as a weapon against you later, which also is not healthy. But here's where I sit. The past does matter. I think past history is often a good indicator of future performance. Yes, I do believe people can change, but I also believe that some patterns in people's lives are much harder to change than you would like to think. And old patterns may indicate future performance as well. So I think it is important to talk about the past. And specifically, I believe if you're dating somebody, you feel like this is a serious relationship that maybe would move towards a long-term relationship or marriage, I think you absolutely have to talk about these 5 areas of a person's past. And I want to give those to you and then get your thoughts on them. So number 1, I think an area you absolutely have to talk about as it relates to a partner's past. And when I say partner, I mean you and them are both talking about this, right? So area number 1 is childhood trauma. Listen, trauma that happens to a person in childhood impacts how they see and relate in future relationships, period. It doesn't just go away. Now, we can heal that, we can work through that, we can process how it has impacted us. But if people have not done that, it may unconsciously be impacting them. When there's stuff that's happened as a child, it's going to affect how they view themselves and how they view others. See, our beliefs determine our decisions or our actions, which give us outcomes. And so if we've got a faulty set of beliefs based on some childhood trauma, then we're going to behave in faulty and wrong ways in a relationship, right? And so if there's been physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, abandonment, these are going to impact how the person sees you, how the person sees relationship, and how they relate in the relationship. And so it's important for you to know what those are. At the same time, if you take a child who's been in a situation of trauma and you take a child who grew up with no trauma at, say, age 20, they're in different places maturity-wise. Because a person who grew up in some trauma has spent a lot of their energy in life just trying to survive what the trauma has done to them, while the other person didn't have to spend any energy surviving, so they got to put all their energy into emotionally and relationally maturing, and so they tend to be a lot more mature emotionally and relationally than somebody who's had trauma. Now again, they can catch up, we can work on things. I'm just saying, when things happen, there are impacts and consequences to it. And for that reason, I think you absolutely have to talk about these things. And I know there's a lot of shame behind it. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but it is impacting relationships whether you notice it or not. So childhood trauma is one of those things you absolutely have to talk about in the relationship. Number 2, I would say, are relational wounds. You need to know how this person has been hurt in past romantic relationships, right? Because that's going to impact the way they behave and perform in this relationship. If you're dating somebody who has been cheated on in every relationship they've ever been in, they have a belief, whether they recognize it or not, that everybody will cheat on them. So they're probably going to be more jealous, a little more controlling, want to be looking over your shoulder, maybe questioning things, maybe a little more insecure. And if you don't understand where that comes from, you're going to be frustrated by it and it'd be hard to work with. So if you have people that have been emotionally or physically abused in relationship, controlled or manipulated in relationship, gaslighted in relationship, there's been emotional abuse, those things are going to impact their ability to relate with you in the relationship. It is not simply what you do in this relationship, but also what each of you brings into the relationship. So I think you need to know, what are the things, how have you been hurt in romantic relationships in the past? What are your greatest fears attached to that? And we're going to have to figure out how to manage and deal with those as a couple, but you need to know about relational wounds. Third category is relational history. Now it's a little different than wounds, because we're not talking about now pain points or hurt, we're talking about patterns. So I think you need to know, tell me about some of your past relationships. You need to know what patterns they've had. Was there a lot of makeup, breakup, makeup, breakup, makeup, breakup? Obviously that speaks to some issues that are going on, maybe an inability to resolve conflict. You need to know, has the person never had a relationship last over a month or 2 months or something like that? Never had a long-term relationship? That's important to know. That may give you a good indicator they don't know how to resolve conflict in a healthy way, or they don't think conflict is healthy, and so whenever there's conflict they cut and run, or maybe it shows you they cut people out of their lives immediately. Maybe you have somebody who has never been alone. They've gone from a long-term relationship to long-term relationship. That's going to give you some insight into how do they relate. Maybe they stay in relationships longer than they should because they don't want to be alone. Maybe they're a little codependent. But you need to know a person's relational history. Have they chosen the same types of people over and over again who maybe have mistreated them? You come along and go, well, I'm going to treat them different, so I don't need to worry about that. That's not me. Okay, but they may not know how to receive good treatment. If they've always chosen people who don't treat them well, that may speak to something they believe about themselves, which is going to affect you in the relationship as well. So I think you absolutely need to know about relational history. Number 4, you need to know about financial history. Debt matters, and different debt matters differently. Listen, now we may be saying, well, no, they made some bad decisions or they were young, and that may be true, and they may have changed. But then if they have debt or have had bad financial decisions in the past, I want to see a pattern of new financial decisions that are healthy. It's okay to ask somebody that you've been dating, what is their credit score? That's important. Oh, no, listen, that's important. If their credit score is bad, that means if in your long-term relationship, everything's going to be in your name. Are you okay with your name being put on their decision-making process? Right? There's a proverb that says a companion of fools suffers harm. So if you financially link yourself to a financial fool, it will harm your credit score and your finances. Listen, financial history tells us about people. It'll tell you about somebody's priorities and their values, and it'll give you some insight into their inability or ability to delay gratification at times when it comes to having stuff. So don't just dismiss it like, oh, it don't matter, it is what it is, I'm good with my finances. Okay, if you're good with your finances, then you probably want somebody who also is good with their finances. Financial history absolutely matters. You want to know about that. And number 5, I think you absolutely have to talk about family relationships. Listen, somebody who has strained or absent family relationships, that could and probably is a red flag. Now, you may be saying, oh, their family's unhealthy and they're dysfunctional and they're toxic. And it may be true, but that also tells you the person you're partnering with grew up in that environment, so they got a little bit of that stuff. Now, I will concede that maybe 0.1 of 0.1% of people have families that are so dysfunctional and toxic that it is completely unhealthy to have any relationship with them. That may be the exception. But our problem is we always think we're the exception in relationship. Probably if your partner has strained or absent relationships with their family, that tells you something about them. It tells you maybe they don't have the ability to resolve conflict and reconcile well. It may tell you they don't know how to set healthy boundaries with family, and neither does their family. And so there's all kinds of enmeshing and mismeshing and stuff going on that is making relationship difficult. It's important. It's important to know that the person you're partnering with has some level of relationship with their family. Now, there's the opposite too, where it's unhealthy. They're all enmeshed. They call mom 5 times a day. Mom calls them 5 times a day. They ask every decision from their parents, even though they're 35. Listen, so the family relationship will tell you a lot about the person. It's important to know that. You maybe heard the phrase before, when you marry a person, you don't marry their family. Yeah, you do. Absolutely you do. Those are the people that have had the most influence and guidance and modeling for them in their entire life. One, you marry them in the sense that whoever they are, your partner gets some of that. And you also marry them in the sense that your partner is still in a relationship with them and probably not going to completely cut them out if you don't like certain things. So you're going to have to learn how to compromise and manage those family relationships. Those are important. So there's 5 things that I believe you absolutely have to talk about when it comes to your partner's past. You do not want to gloss over these. You do not want to minimize these. These are important and these will affect your relationship. Don't fool yourself. Don't gloss over it. Don't convince yourself the past doesn't matter. People change. People do change. But the past also matters. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comment section below. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think of these 5. Maybe there's some others you also think that I didn't list here. Again, if we can help you in your relationship, check out all the relationship resources in the description area below. Become a part of our marriage membership family. We'd love to hang out with you and grow with you as you journey in your marriage. And until next time, I'll see you right back here on Relation Shots.